I'm now being joined live from Washington, D.C. by the Voice of America's Elizabeth Arrott. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us again on The World Today.
Good to be here, Cynthia.
Well, we understand that the U.S. President Barack Obama is supposed to hold talks with military chiefs from more than 20 countries on how to combat ISIS, both in Syria and Iraq. Any word on that so far?
Well, we're still about 2 hours before that meeting. And as you said, there are about 20 countries that are sending their defense ministers in quite an important meeting and seeing how far they've gotten along and showing the commitment of the U.S. towards fighting the Islamic State. There have been some gains in this campaign by the coalition, but also they've been losing ground. I mean, they've got ISIS troops getting nearer to Baghdad and the Baghdad airport. Parts of Anbar now, it looks like they could have the Islamic State could have full control of that, and of course the battle for Kobani is going on. And so this is sort of a crucial time to sort of redouble their commitment. And also they have Turkey coming, and that's a country that has not joined the coalition but could be key, especially in terms of they have the tanks right there at Kobani and have been very reluctant to move in at this point, and there will probably be some attempt to persuade them to allow at least the U.S. to use air bases in Turkey and join in the fight more than they have so far.
Now, Elizabeth, a lot of Middle Eastern analysts have been criticizing the airstrike, saying they're not effective in any way or they're not doing too much. But based on what we understand from your end, at least what you hear from the Obama administration, how effective have they been so far?
Well, indeed, they are limited, and the Obama administration does admit that, and they are hoping to train both moderate forces in Syria to act as ground troops, as well as strengthening the Iraqi army. But until that really happens, it's all they have to rely on. As we've seen in Kobani, they've increased the coalition airstrikes over the last few days. There have been moderate gains, but the general consensus is that it's going to be very hard for the Kurdish defenders of Kobani to hold out against the troops just with airstrikes alone.
And finally, Elizabeth, we know that the U.S. and a lot of Western countries have made it a policy not to negotiate with terrorists, but we're now seeing families like the Cantors coming out to speak, or that they would like to negotiate with the ISIS militants in order to have their families or their loved ones freed. What is happening right now on the part of the government? Is there any plan in place in order to rescue these hostages so as to avoid dialogue on the part of the families, that's between the families and ISIS?
Well, it does seem to be a break in how people want to approach this. And as you said, we've seen these families make these very heartrending pleas directly to the Islamic State. As you know, over the summer, the government said it tried to rescue Scott Foley, some of the previous hostages. That failed. The hostages had moved before. They rule out negotiation. And there's also increasing concern that somehow, as absolutely understandable as these pleas from the families are, that it somehow shows the Islamic State as a sort of all-powerful and group, and adds to their mythology of merciless, powerful group that it works to their advantage in terms of propaganda. Again, it's very, very hard because, of course, you families will do anything to try and release their family members and their relatives held hostage. It's not clear how well that's working so far.
Well, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for speaking with us again on The World Today. We appreciate your time. I've been speaking with the Voice of America's Elizabeth Arrott. She's been telling us more concerning ISIS.